Nope, not that one. Not time to push that agenda. God Hand is a video game that I played. Alright, let's go. We did it. Beat-On is back! From Capcom and Clover Studio, makers of Okami and Beautiful Joe, this game is an over-the-top 3D beat-em-up. Take Streets of Rage and add 10 kilograms of stupid shit, a dash of Fist of the North Star, and you get God Hand. This game is perhaps, no, definitely most known, not for the game itself, but for an infamous review from IGN, giving it a 3 out of 10. Can you believe they gave this game a lower score than Imagine Party Babies? I'm gonna make fun of this for the next 20 years. Did I play the game? No! Well, I myself Beat-On, haven't played Imagine Party Babies, but I have now played the God Hand. And were they right, or was the internet right to clown on them for probably far too long? I mean, it's alright. God Hand is a fucking weird of a video game. This game has no setup whatsoever. Once you hit that button, you are thrown right into things, and oh my god, it's tank controls. I guess it was the Capcom era for that kind of stuff, but the game feels off kilter. It doesn't feel bad all of the time. I got used to it, but it's awkward. Wouldn't call it ideal. Much like how I wouldn't call the camera ideal, because this thing, it just fucking blows. It's always behind Gene. Where he looks is where it looks. And it's like if 7-Eleven was 11-7. It's inconvenient. It leads to so many off-screen hits and moments where I'm trying to hit an enemy with lower health, but I gotta fight the camera before I fight the enemy. Thankfully, the combat system in general is pretty good. You can customize your entire moveset, each button. You want a combo of a juggle into a launcher, into a multi-hit, into another jungle? Why? What's wrong with you? There's a lot of ways to vary up your moveset. It's the coolest part of the video game, no doubt. Granted, you're kinda forced to have 1 or 2 guard break moves, since breaking guards is how you deal with any and all enemies. But still, cool system. There's a lot of options, which I can't say about the enemies, because you're fighting the same few types of enemies for the entire campaign. There's normal goons, big goons, lanky goons, girl, and you fight these over and over again for the entirety of the game. But keep on your toes, because every now and then, a defeated enemy revives as a demon. And if there's anything that pisses me off more than Genshin Impact, I mean probably Honkai Star Rail, but don't get me wrong, I hate these yahoos too. At the start of the game, consider these guys an instant loss. They hit hard and are a pain in the ass to deal with. Enjoy doing that room again. Once you learn how to beat them consistently, psst, just use the God Hand sauce, it works every time. They turn from killers to just annoyances, and by the end of the game, we're still fighting these guys? Flipping the script back to positive. The boss fights in God Hand are great when it's a 1v1. These feel like real tests of skill, whether it's the big guy, the demon hand guy, the samurai dude who shows up out of nowhere. These are the highlights of the game. There's like 5 of them. The rest are either big scary demon monsters or group fights. The big demon monsters are kinda whatever, camera issues rear their ugly head since they're so big sometimes, but they tend to be some of the easier boss fights. Boss fights with multiple enemies can eat my farts! These can already get pretty bad in regular encounters, but in boss fights, Christ on a bike eating Mike and Ike's. Unlike me, I go for the Klondike. When there's multiple bosses, you can barely get a few licks in before you get interrupted. It's like talking with multiple extroverts. I'm not good at conversation, man. That Power Ranger Reject 1v5 is exceptionally terrible. I cannot believe how dog that boss fight is. You can get touched once, and before you recover, oh, here comes the other guy, here comes the other guy. You can get locked into attacks over and over again, to the point where you get touched once, and half of your health is just gone. Sorry, should've just not gotten hit a single time. I mean, what are you doing making any mistakes whatsoever? Are you stupid? Thank God there aren't too many of those, otherwise I'd be saying 3 out of 10, that's too high, IGN. I swear I'm gonna be seeing these guys in my nightmares. Unlike a 2D beat 'em up or Devil May Cry, this game does not feel built to take this many dudes at once. Pause. Sometimes the game just puts you in a room with strong guy after strong guy. It's kind of overly brutal at times. Late in the game, they get so tanky and do so much damage. In the final level, there's an encounter with like 8 guys, no burgers, no fries, only an ass beating. And one of them, by default, always turns into a demon, and they all do giga damage, and times like these, dude, this is a f***ing nightmare. and then they bring back the goddamn Rangers again! If there's one thing about God Hand, it's that shit just kinda happens. You fight a robot twice, there's a couple random minigames with 8-bit music for no apparent reason. They aren't even retro games, I don't understand this. Some rocker just shows up and starts beefing with no explanation, and nothing is more emblematic of just shit happening than the story itself. Dude, God Hand story, who cares what story? There's almost nothing to say. For a game with so many cutscenes, there's so little to talk about. Besides Jean, God Hand, and Olivia? I'm gonna go with Olivia. I can't remember a single character's name. There's the big dude, the guy voiced by Timmy's dad. Nope, wrong guy again. Demon Hand guy, you're not him. You're not gonna be him. You will never be him. And the girl one.
Looks like this dog can be trained after all.
The only bitch that needs training is you.
So you're gonna train me, huh? First man I've met who's ever said that.
She likes sex. Every chapter plays out like this. Jean goes to a place, fights some guys, says one-liner so cheesy Leon Kennedy is smelling the mold, the evil guys talk, one goes and fights you, you win, they run away. Rinse and repeat 8 times. And the cutscenes, by God! I don't know if it's the English dub or just the cutscene direction, but they have the most awkwardly timed deliveries I've seen in a long time.
I can feel it.
Look at his left arm. He is a God Hand.
God Hand is so blasé. Call me the Devil Hand.
I don't know if the camp is intentional or not, but most cutscenes left me confused, not laughing. Am I supposed to be laughing? Am I supposed to be hype? I don't know. I don't understand the intention. I'm not asking for a complex story in my arcadey beat-em-up game. This isn't One Piece, but I beat the game, and I still have no opinion on any of the characters. Jean? Who the fuck is this guy? What's he even doing? What even is the God Hand? I don't know. Hey, it's either this or a long info dump about the secrets of the God Hand, which maybe I don't want because the game is already long enough as is. Yeah, biggest complaint with God Hand, too fucking long, dude. My time clocked in at 13 hours, and by hour 7 or 8, I was getting exhausted. Levels take such a long time, and sure, you can save after every room, but it's still a bunch of marathons. The combat is good, but it gets a bit old, and by the halfway point, the game has shown off all the cool ideas it had for set pieces and boss fights, and then it either spins its wheels doing the same thing over and over again, or is simply annoying. With all that being said, there is just one thing left to do. It is time to traverse to a land most God Hand fans would never even dream of going. Actually reading the fucking IGN review.
Woo!
So, God Hand isn't a game I ended up loving, but the opinion people care about is IGN's opinion. That 3 out of 10 has haunted gamers and the publication for decades, and I've never actually read the IGN review. Were they right the whole time? Or were they dead wrong and the gamers right the whole time? I'm here to figure out once and for all if I agree with IGN or not. It's somewhat apparent that God Hand was meant to be a joke on many levels, much as a film director might intentionally make a B-movie. The game practically encourages button mashing, enemies are extremely generic, the level layout is very uninspired, the dialogue and jokes are poorly written and delivered, and most of all, much of the control and gameplay mechanics are so old school it hurts. While Clover took a huge risk in hoping this sort of off-kilter design would appeal to some gamers, and there will probably be a few folks out there who dig this extremely niche design, by and large the joke falls flat. Dead flat. Immediately, they are just going all in on saying all the bad things about God Hand with no remorse. I kinda rock with the energy. The combat system is one of the only interesting parts of the game, with its customizable attacks and a plethora of moves with different effects which you unlock over the course of the game. It allows you to consistently switch up your moves throughout the entirety of the game. I actually do agree with this. This is my main compliment of God Hand. The battle system is really well thought out. There's so many different moves and so many different options for you to customize your kit that you can express yourself in so many different ways. That being said, for me, and probably the average player, by level 3 or 4, they'll kind of find the few moves they know are the good ones and just stick with that. There's not really a whole lot of reason to change up what you're doing except for fun. And sure, you can do that. But I knew what was good, and it worked for me, and it never stopped working. I just kept doing that. Well, outside of that, it's a very tedious brawler, where outside of minute tactics, you'll spend most battles button mashing, and even the funny parts get old quickly. Yeah, this I kinda agree with too. The combat is fun, but the game is so long at some point you're kinda getting tired of it. A game like this is good for at max 10 hours, and I was going way beyond that, to the point where I was like, yeah, I'm still doing this. Jean's arm, the titular God Hand, is little more than just a power which you can find in any other combat heavy game. It doesn't save God Hand at all. The roulette wheel attacks are flashy and eye candy, but they don't add a lot of fun to the combat system. I get what they're saying here, but I don't fully agree with it. I feel like the idea of a super meter kind of goes hand in hand with games of this style. You think like the Devil Trigger mode and Devil May Cry, it's the same sort of mechanic as this one. So I think both work equally as well. Now with the super moves, nah, they're just cool. That's really all it is. They're really cool. Level 3s are a bitch though. You're barely gonna get them because of the level system. You get hit a couple of times, boom, you're down to level 1. Getting to level 2 is already hard enough. Getting to level 3 is nigh impossible. If you got this consistently, no you didn't. Stop lying. One major part with the combat is the problematic camera, which is especially annoying in crowded rooms and leads to so many hits you can't see. The dodge button does not make up for the poor camera. Yep, that's what I said. The camera is hot ass. It kinda works, but it's so awkward to control, and more times than not, when you're scrolling around, you're gonna get hit by something so you just can't see it off screen. It happens so consistently that it got really annoying. The health pickups are fine, but since health doesn't carry over between levels, it's best to just die at the beginning of every level, get your full life bar rack, and since dying has no penalty, the only downside is sitting through a loading screen. You know, I never thought about that, but that does kinda suck. It's not the biggest issue in the world. The game doesn't have lives or continues or anything like that, so dying, there's no penalty to it, but yeah, I can't deny it's a little annoying. The enemy design is extremely generic, adding to the game's repetition. Okay, at this point I have to swear I didn't read this beforehand because they are saying pretty much everything that I already said. We have pretty much all of the same complaints. The enemy designs do kinda suck. There's about 4 of them, and you'll really get tired of them. Especially towards the end when they get so tanky. You'll be fighting them over and over again, and they all take just so long to beat for no reason. Doesn't it feel like the game's getting naturally harder? Just kind of more tedious. The demons are the most annoying aspect about this, and it gets worse every time you fight one. Yeah, the demons, they just fucking suck. The game is pretty bad, dude. I had the same opinion as IGN. I kinda think the same thing they think about God Hand. Not quite to the exact same extent they did, they were a bit more harsh with their criticisms than I was. But I kinda had all the same problems, and maybe a few more. They didn't talk much about how nothing the story is and how bad the dialogue is for the most part. But gameplay wise, they kinda said all the same things I did. Repetitive enemy design, annoying camera, kinda repetitive and long gameplay. I kinda think most of the things they do about the game? Which leads me to think, where did all the hate come from for this review? Even if you disagree, it's not worded super poorly, and I feel like even if you like it, you can kinda understand where they're coming from when they don't like it. Nothing seems super unreasonable or coming from a place of just bad gameplay. Was IGN right the whole time? Where'd all the hate come from? For years, decades, people were hating on this review? It's more right than it is wrong. I don't think I understand the gamers then. It's just kind of harsh, that's really the only issue for the most part, it's just... I mean, it, I'll say it, it's kinda right! So that was God Hand, a game I came away not really liking all that much. Well, I can get the praise for it to some extent. I mean, it's a goofy, dumb, popcorn B-movie action game with decent mechanics. I get why someone would like it just didn't land for me at all. And the same thing is true for IGN, which is why they gave it a 3 out of 10. I don't think it's fair to use IGN the God Hand review to negate all their opinions forever. It was years ago, and let's be honest, most people clowning on them for that haven't played the game. God Hand didn't sell all that well. I believe if they did, they would kinda understand a bit more why IGN said the things they did. Even if they liked the game, I feel like it's pretty evident there are flaws or things someone like me or them could consider to be flaws. A lot of things about the game kinda piss me off. I feel like the IGN God Hand review reception is an example of confirmation bias expanding on itself. This was the time when Capcom was making risky and interesting games like Resident Evil 4, Okami. People hear Capcom and think it must be good, so confirmation bias kicks in and tells them that they disagree, they must just be wrong. The people that played the game when it first came out, some may liked it and disagree with the opinion, then they clowned on them. Then more people who came in probably didn't play the game clowned them even more, and it became a bigger and bigger and bigger thing, so that became one of the biggest marks against IGN. The reviewer was just being honest about his opinion. He played the game and he didn't like it, and that's okay. It's something I still see happen constantly nowadays. When a reviewer reviews a game that's hyped way too low, as in an 8 instead of a 9, people rage. When people review a game people want to hate as way too high, they want to rage. People want reviews to reflect their opinions completely, and when they don't think of it as another person who had a different opinion, they think of it as a monolithic entity stomping down on their opinions. And that's just not fair. It's one guy who played God Hand and just didn't like it. Kinda like how I'm one guy who played God Hand and I didn't really like it. After playing God Hand, I don't fully agree with the IGN 3 out of 10. I lean more to a 5, maybe a 4. But I do fully understand the IGN 3 out of 10. I bet they still see those f***ing Rangers in their nightmares. God, I hated that boss. Go f*** yourself, Power Ranger.